So we are going to dig into the Word here. We're going to open up to Luke chapter 10. We're going to look at verses 1 and 2 to kind of guide us through what we have today. The Gospel according to Luke. So this is some verses that many of you who have been around church may have heard before. And they're kind of used quite a bit. So let's read through here and see what God has for us. After this, the Lord appointed 72 others and sent them on ahead of him, 2 by 2, into every town and place where he himself was about to go. So he gathers up his most loyal servants, these guys that are ready and willing to help. And he gathers up these guys and he sends them out. He buddies them up 2 by 2, sends them out ahead of him where he will go. They're out there to pave the way for Jesus. They're out there to prepare his way. They're out going in all these places. And he said to them, "The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore pray earnestly to the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest." We may have heard this verse before, right? If you've been around church, you show up for something and there's not enough volunteers and, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. We use that a lot, right? When there's not enough people to help. And Jesus is kind of using this, and I love how he uses the idea of the harvest because, especially at that time and even today, especially in this community, it's something we can all relate to. We understand, crops and farming and harvests and gardens and things like that. Jesus was sending these guys out. They were people who probably said, "I'll do this." He's doing the same thing with us. He has sent us out. We are his workers, ready to go out and serve his kingdom ahead of him. The harvest is all the people, right? There are so many people. It gives you this sense of urgency. There's 72 people. They're going out to all these towns. Who knows how many thousands of people that they needed to reach. There's not enough of them. Pray for more workers because there's only a few of you and there's a lot of people. There are so many. There's an urgency. We need to get to work. We got to get out there. These guys were, it's almost like they were, I pictured them like running out, I got to go. There's things to do. It's urgent. And that's what God's called us to do. He hasn't called us to sit in a chair. He's called us out, sent us out to go and do his work, to prepare people for the meeting that they're going to have with Jesus someday. That's what we're here to do. Every person sitting in these chairs that knows what Jesus has done, who's accepted Jesus into their lives, who's given their lives over to him, right then and there, you are now the worker. It doesn't say that you go through a training period. It doesn't say that, the Bible doesn't say anything about that. It says, "Go, therefore, make disciples, preach and baptize to all the nations." It doesn't say after you've been a believer for 2 weeks, after you've gone to church for 3 years, after you know everything that you need to know about the Bible. It doesn't say that. So a lot of you might be sitting here today thinking, well, that's just for the pastors, it's just for the preachers, it's just for the Bible study leaders and the youth group leaders, and, that's their job to do those things, that's not for me. Or you might be sitting here thinking, I don't really know enough. What if I go to somebody and I say, if they ask me a question about the Bible or about Jesus and I don't know the answer, what if I go out to someone and I start to talk to them about things of the truth and things of the Word, and they start to quiz me on things, and I don't know what to say? Or, you might be thinking you're inadequate. Do you know enough? Are you good enough? Are you the person for this job? The Bible says you are. Not good enough. I don't know enough. Back in 1 Samuel, 1 Samuel 16. This is a story that we're actually sharing with the kids in the Club E program this past week. And a little bit of a backstory here. Okay, Samuel is this prophet of God. And at that time, the Israelites were complaining to God, which they did a lot, which we do too. I love the Israelites because they're like me. And The Israelites were complaining to God, we don't have a king. All these other nations around us, they have a king. Please give us a king. And so God appoints this guy, King Saul. And it says he was following the Lord, but then he kind of veered away from the Lord, right? He fell off the train, and he wasn't a good king anymore. He wasn't following the Lord. And so God speaks to this prophet Samuel, and he says, go to the house of Jesse, this guy's house, and anoint a king. And so he goes there. Jesse, the father of 8 sons, I believe it says here anyway. And he kind of has his sons all lined up, right? He got all right, the Bible doesn't say this, but maybe, go shower, get your best get your best, robes on, get your best stuff on, dress, brush your hair, brush your teeth, whatever you got to do. And he's got all his sons out here, and Samuel comes to anoint the next king. And so he's looking at these guys, and his first choice is the oldest, most obvious one. He's probably the oldest, probably, the strongest, maybe most strapping young lad there. And this has got to be the king. God says no. Goes down the line. Nope, not you. Next son, nope, not you. Next son, God says, nope, not you. Comes to verse 11. Then Samuel said to Jesse, are all your sons here? And he said, there remains yet the youngest, but behold, he's keeping the sheep. So there was one kid who was so little and not worthy of even being considered to be king that he was just out in the field. They didn't even call him in. He wasn't even in the lineup. He wasn't even going to get picked. Samuel said to Jesse, send and get him, for we will not sit down until he comes here. And he sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy and had beautiful eyes and was handsome. And the Lord said, arise, anoint him, for this is he. This was later to become King David. He was the littlest, scrawniest one. Bible says, he was a good-looking kid, right? But that's not why God picked him. God picked him because he examines his heart, and he saw what he had, and he saw what he was going to become. He saw that he was going to be his faithful servant. He saw all the gifts and all the things that he did have, that even though he didn't know it, and his father didn't know it, and his brothers didn't know it. Oh, that little kid, he's out in the field. Well, he's not going to be king. Many years later, he would be king. You might not think you've got what it takes to go out and share the gospel with somebody, to grab somebody by the arm and care for them and help them to understand what it is of the things of the Bible and the things of the truth and the things that Jesus did for us. You might think that you're not good enough. You might not think you have what it takes, but God is looking at your heart, and I can tell you right now that he has given you what you need, and you are being sent out. Every person who has come to know Jesus as Lord, you are a worker. I talk about this hobby farm that we run, and so this year in the spring, I thought, we're always trying to experiment with different things, like what can we grow, what can we sell, how can we make this farm operate, and I started thinking in the spring, pumpkins, Halloween, jack-o'-lanterns, that'll be great. We'll grow pumpkins. And so, I'm looking at, Walmart, and they're, charging $6-7 or $5 for pumpkins, and I'm trying to add it all. Okay, all right, this might work. So we'll plant a pumpkin patch this year. Never really done this before, but why not? It's pumpkins. How hard can it be? So we went out, and I start planning. I start researching different, types of pumpkins and things. I order the seeds. I go out into our fields, and I'm like, this is the spot right here. I'm looking at the sun, and all right, this is the spot. So I picked this great big spot. And I'm out there with my little tiny rototiller. It's probably as big as this school, it felt like. And I'm tilling up all, back and forth for hours out there. And then I'm like, this is not going to work. So I went and I bought a plow for my tractor. And so I hooked up the plow, and I plowed the ground all up. And this is great. We're folding all the weeds in and all this stuff. And then I looked back, and I had, all these piles of dirt and stuff. And I'm like, now what do I do? Because now I can't plant anything in that. And so then I got the little rototiller back out, and I tried to mow it all back down again. So granted, I'm an amateur, but I was trying to get this patch ready, right? Finally get it all smoothed out. Bring in our compost, and I'm making all these little hills, measured it all out, string lines, everything's good. It's perfect, 10 feet between each hill. It would look nice. Get the seeds out, plant all the seeds out there by hand. Now, in the past, I had planted I've grown 2 or 3 pumpkin plants, but I thought, why not do 1,000? Because why not do 1,000, right? It's an even number. So we make 1,000 hill, or not 1,000 hills, but planted 1,000 pumpkin plants out there one by one, planted all these things. And then you water them, right? Of course, being well planned out, I put the pumpkin patch just out of reach of all the hoses that we own from the barn. So I'm filling up barrels of water in the truck, taking it out there, watering each hill at a time. About a week later, you go out there and everything's sprouted. Oh, it was great. All these little pumpkin plants going. I'm like, I'm gonna have 2,000 pumpkins. I'm thinking if everyone grows, this many, and it's gonna be awesome. What am I gonna do with all these things? I better call Walmart. They're gonna have to sell these things for me or something. This is gonna be great. So, I'm preparing these things, then you care for them, right? Anybody who's had a garden, you go out, and that's not the end. That's just the beginning of the journey with growing stuff, because you planted it, and now guess what? What you planted, Lord, I don't understand, but every weed that God has created can grow with no water, with no soil, with no nothing, and it will just, we all know this if we grow things. So, of course, the weeds are growing out there, and I'm trying to keep up and pull weeds and put straw down in between everything and make it all nice. Well, this is exactly what the Bible tells us that we are to do. When He sends us out to prepare the way for Him, sometimes that means a lot of work. That means a lot of caring for people. That means a lot of helping people. That means a lot of hospital visits. That means a lot of helping neighbors and helping friends and helping family. That means a lot of caring for people, maybe before the harvest takes place, right? We need to sometimes care for people. We need to sometimes love people. The Bible tells us to love our neighbors even before ourselves. And at one point, the whole point of that is that at some day, we're going to have the opportunity to share the good news of Jesus with them. The door will be opened. Hey, man, I noticed you go to church all the time. What's that all about? Ding, ding, ding. The door's been open. We might not run down the street. Hey, do you know Jesus? Do you know Jesus? Is you Jesus? Because some people are probably going to think we're nuts, and they're probably not going to listen to us. Maybe they will. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're into that, you're bold, and that's great. But sometimes we care, right? We spend a lot of time caring for people. Everything that we do as a church, all this stuff, these chairs, all the things that we set up, trick or treat or trunk or treat downtown, handing out candy to kids, picnics in the park, cleaning up yards, all the different things we do, supporting missionaries, all these things. There's one purpose. It's not to give somebody candy. It's not to cook somebody a hot dog. It's so that we can care for somebody, because eventually we'd love to have the opportunity to share the gospel with them. And that's what we're supposed to do in our own lives. Family members, friends, how many people are you going to see over the next 2 months that may not know the Lord? How many people in your family, how many friends, how many people that we love and we're going to see? There's every opportunity. We're on a mission where we've been called. If we go and we have a picnic in the park and we cook hot dogs for people, that is great. But if all we did was cook a hot dog for somebody and say, see you later, enjoy your hot dog, I hope you're not going to hell, we wouldn't do that, would we? That doesn't sound like it's going to make a lot of sense, right? The whole point is that we have an opportunity to share the love of Jesus with them, because they don't need a hot dog, they need Jesus. That's the whole purpose of everything that we do here and everything that we do as believers. Everything that we do, that's the purpose. That's the mission. There's only one mission. It's really easy. It's great. There's only one goal. There's lots of steps along the way, and there's lots of work. I spent all summer caring for that pumpkin patch, hauling barrels of water out there, pulling weeds, doing all these things, right? It was hot. It was dry. But even after all that work, even after caring for people, after loving people, after sometimes sharing the gospel with people, the Bible tells us that not all will be saved. Mathew 13, verse 3 through 9. So this is another good one that you may have heard if you've been around church or been in the Bible. The parable of the sower, it's called. And I love when Jesus uses these parables to get things through our heads, to make it real simple and try to help us understand, especially at that time, again, for farmers and for things like that. It's like, let me break this down for you and give you an example. So Jesus tells this parable. Verse 3. And he told them many things in parables, saying, a sower went out to sow. And as he sowed, some seeds fell along the path, and the birds came and devoured them. Other seeds fell on rocky ground where they did not have much soil, and immediately they sprang up, since they had no depth of soil. But when the sun rose, they were scorched, and since they had no root, they withered away. Other seeds fell among the thorns, or the weeds, we could say, the tares in some versions. And the thorns grew up and choked them. But other seeds fell on good soil and produced grain, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. He who has ears, let him hear. Gives us this example of planting seeds. Sometimes we go out and we sow the seeds of the truth of the gospel. I'm thinking about Club B in my own life. A lot of times we speak with these kids that are younger. We work with them. We may spend years talking with them, loving them, caring for them, asking them how they're doing, sharing the good news with them, sharing Jesus with them, sharing the truth of the Bible about how they should live their lives. Think about the people in our family, our friends we share the good news with. We plant these seeds. But it says that sometimes they'll fall along the path. And it says in the description that Jesus gives, because he doesn't just tell the parable, he also explains the parable, which is really great. The evil one will come and snatch them away from us. We are out there telling them truth, but the evil one's out there telling them the lies. And sometimes people choose the lies over the truth. And there's nothing we can do about that. It's our job to tell them the truth and to preach the gospel and to love them and care for them and keep bringing them to Jesus. Sometimes it says that the seeds will fall onto dry ground. Maybe we share the gospel, the good news with somebody. We share the truth with someone, and they start to understand it a little bit. Maybe, we've seen this. You see this in churches. You see this in other things. They may come in, and then they're gone. And then we never see them again. It says that they didn't have roots, and they withered away. And sometimes, and this is my favorite example of understanding this, the seeds fall in the weeds. And we know what happens with weeds. They overtake everything. They grow up taller, faster, stronger than whatever it is that you actually want to grow, and they cover it over. They smother it out. No light can get in. The truth can't reach it anymore. It can't grow. And that's what the world does. That's what the world does to us. It's bombarding us. It wants to smother us. It wants to consume us. It wants to take us away. It wants to take us down. The world is telling us lies, and the world is full of these things. The explanation tells us that the riches of the world will entice them more than the truth. And the people die. They fall away. But sometimes the seeds of the truth fall on fertile ground, and they grow and they produce fruit. And it's such a great thing to behold the truth understood by someone, and then you watch them and you watch their life and you watch what it does, and you watch Jesus show up and just change them and just continue to transform them. And it's an amazing thing. I planted 1,000 pumpkins over the course of the summer, caring for them, and some withered away. Some didn't get enough water. Some didn't get enough sunlight. Some didn't sprout. Some of them got overtaken by weeds. A lot of them, actually, got overtaken by weeds, unfortunately. They got overtaken by weeds, and they were choked out, and leaves withered and died, and they produced no fruit. But at the end of the season, the ones that grew, they were so important to us. Every single pumpkin that we picked from that patch brought a smile to our face. Every single pumpkin that grew and bore fruit there meant something to our farm, to our livelihood, to our animals for food. Every single one was important. And that's why we do what we do. That's why I worked all summer long. That's why I planted the seeds in the first place, because I expected that some would grow. And I knew that some would grow. And when we tell the truth, when we talk the truth, we preach the gospel to people, we share the good news with somebody, we expect it to grow, and we watch it, and we wait, and when it does, it's an amazing thing. I'll wrap up here. I used to work for Geek Squad, and I used to work at home. I used to do this remote support stuff for computers, okay? So people would connect up to my computer, or not connect to mine, but I would connect up to theirs remotely, and they would have a virus or something, and I would, go in and clean it all out for them and whatever. Well, sometimes it would come to a point where I would have to call the person, like let's say, their printer's broken or something, and I needed to actually physically talk to them and say, plug this in or turn the power on or whatever it was. Happens more than you'd think. And so this man, I can't remember what the problem was, but I had to call him. I worked through the issue. It was fairly easy to resolve. I don't remember what it was. And before we ended the call, I said, anything else I can help you with? And he said, Todd, because they have my name and everything. He said, Todd, do you know Jesus? And I was like, I do, sir. Actually, yes, sir, I do. I said, I know the Lord. That wasn't good enough for him. We spent a long time, and he spent a long time on the phone with me, sharing the gospel with me, telling me all about the things of sin and the things of the truth and the things of the world, and he went through the whole thing with me. Yes, sir, I understand. Smile on my face, I just let him go. It was great. That man was on fire. That man wasn't going to let me off the phone thinking that I could have been lost. He probably called every other Geek Squad agent up in the country and talked to them too. I have no idea. His printer probably wasn't even broken. But this guy knew he got it. He got it. There was an urgency. We're on a mission. We've got things to do. I'm not getting off the phone with this guy. I'm not letting this clerk go at the gas station. I'm not letting this waitress go at the restaurant. I'm not letting my brother, my sister, my mom, my dad, my son, my daughter walk out of this house until they know the truth. He got it. There's a sense of urgency. The harvest is plentiful. The workers are few. We've got a lot to do. Mathew 25. We'll wrap up here. Mathew 25, verse 31 through 34. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne. Before him will be gathered all the nations, and he will separate people one from another, as a shepherd separates one from another. Sheep from goats, And he will place the sheep on his right, but the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. But he will say to those on his left, verse 41, Then he will say to those on his left, Depart from me, you cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. Something we don't like to talk about. Fire and brimstone. We don't want to talk about it. The Bible tells us that there's going to come a time when every single person that ever lived in this world is going to be on the left or going to be on the right. And guess what? When it comes to that time, it's too late. There's no more chances. There's no more time. You're either here or you're there. You've been separated. There's no more opportunities. That person that you love in your life, that person that you care for, there's no more chances to tell them. Some will bear fruit, but some will reject him. And there will be judgment. I ask you here today, have you turned away from Jesus today? Have you turned away from Jesus in your life? Maybe someone shared the truth with you. Maybe you're sitting here today, something's stirring inside you. Maybe you're sitting here today, and it's time to make a decision and give your life over to the Lord. I'm going to ask everyone to just bow their heads. Have you turned away from the things of Jesus? Have you turned away from the truth? Are you ready to give your life over? Are you ready to take the step, the bold step of faith? The Bible tells us that Jesus died to make us right with God, that we are all sinners, every one of us. Jesus died on the cross, taking our place because we deserved death. We deserve to be separated to the side on the left with the goats. We deserve eternal death. But God gave us a way because he loved us so much. He sent his only son to die in our place so that we could have eternal life. If you're sitting here today and you have not accepted Jesus into your heart, don't wait. Lord, I ask that you watch over us. Lord, I ask that you stir in the hearts of those here today. I ask that you guide us. Lord, I ask that if there are those here who do not know you, that they may be bold, Lord. Give them strength to take one small step of faith. Just take a moment to give it over to the Lord right where you sit. Lord, I thank you so much for your word. I thank you for the truth. I thank you for trusting me as a faithful worker. I thank you for trusting so many as faithful workers. Lord, we know that the harvest is plentiful. We know that there is work to be done. I ask that you be with us. I ask that you guide us. I ask that you give us the words to speak, Lord, because we don't know them. I ask that you give us the people to care for because we may not know them. Lord, I ask that you give us the boldness to share the good news with somebody in need of your love and your saving. Lord, be with us. Be with us as we go out throughout this holiday season. Lord, watch over us as we get into Thanksgiving and Christmas, as we go to family functions and parties, that those that we care about, those that we love, we don't miss the opportunity. Lord, set that appointment up. We're preparing the way for you. We know that you're coming. We know that you're going to be there and that you're going to be in their lives, Lord. We're preparing it for you. Lord, I ask that you be with us, strengthen us, and guide us. Through Jesus we pray.